The massive space station hung in the darkness like a metal city. Ships from dozens of different worlds docked at its many ports. Inside the main hall, representatives from across the galaxy sat in a great circle. Each species had their own section with chairs made for their unique bodies. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked into the hall wearing her simple blue Earth uniform. Her black hair was pulled back neatly, and her brown eyes looked calm even though she felt nervous inside. The other aliens stared at her as she passed. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few looked like walking trees. But Elena kept her head high as she moved to the small section marked for Earth. The human section was tiny compared to the others. Earth only controlled 17 star systems, while some species ruled hundreds. Elena sat down in her lonely chair and placed her datapad on the small table in front of her. The Council will now discuss mining rights in the Kepler 442 system, announced the speaker. A tall blue alien with 4 arms. Its voice echoed through the hall. Elena stood up slowly. Earth requests permission to speak. A loud laugh came from across the hall. High Commander Thekvar of the Zephyrian hegemony rose from his throne-like chair. He was 8 feet tall with gray skin and bright red eyes. Sharp teeth showed when he smiled. His uniform was covered in medals from conquered worlds. "The humans want to speak," Thekvar said in a mocking voice. "How amusing. Tell us, little ambassador, what makes you think your infant species deserves a voice here?" Elena's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice steady. "Earth has followed all Council laws. We have the right to speak about systems near our territory. Rights?" Thekvar's red eyes glowed brighter. "Rights are earned through strength. Your species crawled out of their caves only yesterday. You have been in space for what, 300 years? The Zephyrian hegemony has ruled the stars for 3,000 years. Other aliens in the hall began to whisper. Some nodded in agreement with Thekvar. Others looked uncomfortable but said nothing. The Zephyrian military was too strong to oppose. Elena pulled up a map on her datapad. According to Council records, the Kepler 442 system was unclaimed when Earth ships arrived there 6 months ago. Our miners are already working on 3 asteroids. Your miners are trespassing, Thekvar growled. He pressed a button on his chair, and a large screen appeared in the center of the hall. The screen showed space near Kepler 442. 3 human mining ships were pulling metal from floating rocks. "Watch carefully." "Humans," Thekvar said with a cruel smile. On the screen, 10 Zephyrian warships appeared out of nowhere. They were twice the size of the human ships and covered in weapons. Red energy beams shot out from the warships. The first human ship exploded in a ball of fire. Then the second. Then the third. Elena watched in horror as 37 human miners died on the screen. Their ships were completely destroyed. She gripped her chair so hard her knuckles turned white. "That was yesterday," Thekvar announced to the hall. "A small demonstration of what happens to thieves in Zephyrian space." The hall was completely silent. Elena could hear her own heartbeat. She stood up again, her legs shaking slightly. "Those miners had families," she said quietly. "They were following Earth law and Council law." "Earth law means nothing," Thekvar replied. "Council law means nothing when it conflicts with Zephyrian interests. Your species needs to learn its place in the galaxy." Elena looked around the hall at the other aliens. None of them would meet her eyes. "They were all afraid of the Zephyrians, and what place is that?" Elena asked. Thekvar walked down from his section until he stood right in front of Elena. Even sitting, he was taller than her. His red eyes stared down at her. "At our feet," he said, "like every other weak species we have encountered." He turned to address the entire hall. "The Zephyrian hegemony has brought order to this galaxy for thousands of years. We have dealt with 43 species that refuse to accept their proper place. Do you know what happened to them?" Thekvar pressed another button. The screen now showed a memorial wall covered in metal plaques. Each plaque had the name of a dead species written on it. Elena read some of the names: the Altarians, the Nexus Collective, the Star Wanderers, species that used to exist but were now just words on metal. "Complete extinction," Thekvar said with satisfaction. "When a species refuses to bow, we remove them from existence. Every ship, every planet, every last member of their race. We are very thorough." Elena felt sick to her stomach. The other aliens in the hall looked down at their tables. This was how the galaxy worked. The strong ruled and the weak obeyed or died. Now, Thekvar continued, humanity will learn the same lesson. You will withdraw from all star systems beyond your home world within 1 solar rotation. That gives you 24 Earth hours. And if we refuse? Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. Thekvar smiled, showing all his sharp teeth. Then your species will join the memorial wall. 44 extinct races instead of 43. He walked back to his section, then turned around one more time. Oh, and Ambassador Vasquez, he said, using her name for the first time. Do not think your small fleet can protect you. We have 500 battlecruisers moving toward your systems right now. Each one could destroy your entire navy alone. Elena sat down heavily in her chair. Around the hall, other aliens avoided looking at her. They had seen this before. First came the threats, then the demands, then the extinction. It was always the same pattern. The speaker called for a vote on the mining rights. Every species voted to give Kepler 442 to the Zephyrians. Even Elena's few allies voted against Earth. They were too scared to do anything else. After the vote, Elena gathered her things and prepared to leave. As she walked toward the exit, she passed the memorial wall. 43 metal plaques for 43 dead species. A Zephyrian worker was already preparing a 44th plaque. It was blank, but Elena could imagine what it would say. Humanity, 200,000 BCE, 2847 CE. She stopped in front of the wall and read some of the other plaques. The Altarians had been peaceful traders. The Nexus Collective were brilliant scientists. The Star Wanderers were artists and poets, all dead now because they refused to be slaves. Enjoying the view? Thekvar's voice came from behind her. Elena turned around. The massive Zephyrian commander stood just a few feet away. They all thought they were special, he said, looking at the memorial wall. The Altarians believed their technology would save them. The Nexus Collective thought their intelligence made them superior. The Star Wanderers trusted that other species would protect them. They were all wrong. What makes you think humanity will be different? Elena asked. Thekvar laughed. I don't. That's what makes this so amusing. Your species shows the same arrogance as all the others. You think you're unique, but you're just another weak race that grew too bold. Elena stared at the blank plaque that would soon bear humanity's name. We'll see, she said quietly. Yes, Thekvar agreed. We will see. In 24 hours, when your government surrenders, I will have the pleasure of watching your species kneel. And if they don't surrender... He gestured at the memorial wall. Elena walked away without another word. Behind her, Thekvar called out one final threat. Give my regards to your president, little ambassador. Tell her that the Zephyrian hegemony has never failed to collect what it's owed, and right now humanity owes us everything. Elena boarded her small ship and began the journey back to Earth. As her ship left the station, she could see Zephyrian warships gathering in the distance, hundreds of them just as Thekvar had promised. They were preparing for what they thought would be an easy victory. Elena opened a communication channel to Earth. President Liu's face appeared on the screen, looking worried. How did it go? The president asked. Elena looked out her window at the Zephyrian fleet. They want us to surrender everything or face extinction. And what did you tell them? Elena remembered Thekvar's cruel smile and the memorial wall full of dead species. I told them we'll see. The room was completely silent as President Catherine Liu finished reading the Zephyrian ultimatum. Around the long table in Geneva, the most important people on Earth sat with grim faces. Admiral Sarah Chen drummed her fingers nervously on the table. General Rodriguez stared at his hands. Dr. Marcus Webb adjusted his glasses and looked at his datapad. 24 hours, President Liu said finally. They want us to abandon every human colony and return to Earth in 24 hours. Or face complete extinction, Admiral Chen added. Just like 43 other species before us. Liu stood up and walked to the large window that looked out over Lake Geneva. In the distance, she could see the lights of the city. Millions of people going about their normal lives, not knowing that their entire species might die within a day. Admiral Chen, Liu said without turning around, give me our military situation. Chen opened her folder and read from her notes. The Zephyrians have 500 battlecruisers moving toward our space. Each ship is 3 times larger than our biggest warship. They have better weapons, better shields, and better engines. How many ships do we have? Asked General Rodriguez. 47 combat ships total, Chen replied. Plus maybe 30 armed cargo vessels that could help in a fight. So we're outnumbered 10 to 1 by ships that are much stronger than ours, Liu said. That's correct. Madam President. Liu turned back to face the room. Dr. Webb, what does your intelligence division think? Dr. Webb was a thin man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 20 years studying alien species for Earth's government. He cleared his throat and opened his own folder. The Zephyrians have followed the same pattern for 3,000 years, he said. They identify a species that might become a threat. They demand complete surrender. If the species refuses, they destroy every ship, every planet, and every member of that race. Have any species ever survived their attacks? Asked General Rodriguez. No, Webb replied. But I think that's because no species ever really understood what they were fighting. President Liu sat back down. Explain. Webb pulled up a holographic display that showed the galaxy. Red dots marked Zephyrian territory. Blue dots showed the locations where extinct species used to live. Every species the Zephyrians destroyed made the same mistake, Webb said. They tried to fight a conventional war. Ship against ship, fleet against fleet. The Zephyrians are very good at that kind of fighting. And you think we should do something different? Chen asked. I think we should fight the war they don't expect, Webb replied. The Zephyrians are bullies. They've gotten used to species that either surrender immediately or fight in predictable ways. They've never faced an enemy that truly understood them. Liu leaned forward. What do you mean, understood them? Webb pressed a button, and the display changed to show detailed information about Zephyrian society. For 20 years, we've been studying every species in the galaxy. Not just their technology or their military, but how they think, how they organize their society, what they fear. What do the Zephyrians fear? Rodriguez asked. Losing control, Webb said immediately. Their entire empire is built on fear. They rule 200 star systems, but most of those systems hate them. The only reason those worlds don't rebel is because they're afraid of ending up like the 43 extinct species. Chen looked confused. How does that help us? We still can't match their military power. Webb smiled for the first time since the meeting began. We don't need to match their military power. We need to make their military power irrelevant. He pressed another button and the display showed a detailed map of Zephyrian space. Yellow dots appeared throughout their territory. What are those yellow dots? Liu asked. Rebellions, Webb said. For the past 5 years, we've been in secret contact with 47 different species under Zephyrian rule. We've been sharing information, technology, and tactical advice. All we need to do is give them weapons and coordination. Admiral Chen stared at the map. You want to start a galactic war? No, Webb corrected. I want to finish one. The Zephyrians have been fighting this war for 3,000 years. They've just been winning because they could focus all their strength on one enemy at a time. But what happens when they have to fight 47 enemies at once? Liu studied the map carefully. The yellow dots were spread throughout Zephyrian space. If all those worlds rebelled at the same time, the Zephyrian fleet would be stretched very thin. How long would it take to coordinate something like this? She asked. The network is already in place, Webb replied. Our deep space communication system can reach all 47 resistance groups within 6 hours. We can have simultaneous rebellions across their entire empire within 12 hours. General Rodriguez pointed at the display. But they'll still have those 500 ships coming toward Earth. Actually, Chen said slowly, understanding Webb's plan, they won't. If 47 worlds rebel at once, they'll have to send ships to deal with each rebellion. They can't let their empire fall apart just to destroy Earth. Liu walked back to the window and stared out at the lake. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and red. Somewhere out in space, 500 Zephyrian warships were moving toward Earth. In a few hours, those ships would arrive expecting to find a helpless planet ready to surrender. There's something else, Webb said quietly. Something the Zephyrians don't know about us. What's that? Liu asked. We've been preparing for this fight for 10 years. Liu turned around sharply. What do you mean? Webb opened another file on his datapad. Remember the mining accident on Titan 5 years ago? The one that destroyed our research station? Of course, Liu said. 40 scientists died when their reactor exploded. There was no accident, Webb said. We moved that research station to a hidden location. Those 40 scientists have been working on special projects ever since. Chen leaned forward. What kind of special projects? The kind that might give us a real chance to win this war, Webb replied. But I need presidential authorization to activate them. Liu stared at Webb for a long moment. Outside the window, the first stars were becoming visible in the darkening sky. Soon Zephyrian ships would be visible among those stars. Dr. Webb, she said finally, I'm authorizing you to activate whatever projects you think will help humanity survive. Admiral Chen, prepare our fleet for battle, but don't engage the enemy unless I give direct orders. General Rodriguez, begin evacuating non-essential personnel from our outer colonies. What about the ultimatum? Chen asked. Do we send a response to the Zephyrians? Liu thought about Ambassador Vasquez and the memorial wall with 43 extinct species. She thought about Thekvar's cruel smile and his threat to add humanity to that wall. Send them a message, she said. Tell them that humanity respectfully declines their generous offer. That's it? Rodriguez asked. That's it, Liu confirmed. Short and simple. Webb stood up and gathered his files. Madam President, there's one more thing you should know. If we go through with this plan, there's no going back. The Zephyrians don't forgive and they don't forget. Either we win completely or they'll hunt down every last human in the galaxy. Liu nodded. I understand, Dr. Webb, but look at that memorial wall. 43 species tried surrender, submission, and negotiation. Where did it get them? Sometimes you have to fight even when the odds are terrible. As the meeting ended, Liu stayed by the window. The lake was dark now, reflecting the lights of the city. In a few hours, everything would change. Either humanity would find a way to survive, or they would join the long list of extinct species. Her communication device buzzed. It was a message from Ambassador Vasquez, who was still traveling back from the Galactic Council. Madam President, the message said, I want you to know that I saw something in Thekvar's eyes today. He's not just confident about defeating us. He's excited about it. He enjoys destroying entire species. Don't let him have that satisfaction. Liu closed the message and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, 500 enemy ships were coming to destroy her world. But they weren't coming to fight humanity. They were coming to fight the humanity they expected to find abroad, weak, scared, and unprepared. They were going to be very surprised. Liu picked up her secure phone and dialed Dr. Webb's direct number. Marcus, she said when he answered, activate everything. All the hidden projects, all the secret weapons, all the preparations we've made. It's time to show the galaxy what happens when someone threatens Earth. Yes, Madam President, Webb replied. The Zephyrians wanted to hunt humans. Let's see how they feel about being the prey. Captain Elena Rodriguez floated in the command chair of her ship, the Ghost of Terra. Around her, the bridge was dark except for the soft glow of computer screens. Her crew of 12 moved quietly at their stations, speaking in whispers. Outside the thick windows, space looked empty and peaceful, but Elena knew better. Somewhere in the darkness, 500 Zephyrian warships were moving toward Earth. They expected to find helpless humans ready to surrender. Instead, they were about to learn why humans had survived as a species for so long. Captain, whispered Lieutenant Park from the sensor station, I'm reading 3 Zephyrian supply ships approaching the asteroid field. Elena smiled coldly. For the past 6 hours, the Ghost of Terra had been hunting enemy supply lines. The Zephyrians were so confident about their invasion that they weren't even hiding their support ships. Are they escorted? Elena asked quietly. Negative, Captain. 3 cargo ships, no military escorts. Perfect. Elena turned to her weapons officer. Commander Hayes, prepare the stealth torpedoes. The Ghost of Terra was one of Earth's newest ships. It was small, fast, and almost invisible to enemy sensors. More importantly, it carried weapons that the Zephyrians had never seen before. Weapons designed by the secret research team that Dr. Webb had mentioned. Torpedoes ready, Captain, Hayes reported. AI guidance systems are online. Elena studied the tactical display. The 3 Zephyrian cargo ships were carrying fuel, ammunition, and spare parts for the invasion fleet. Without supplies, even the strongest warships became helpless. Fire, Elena ordered. 6 torpedoes launched from the Ghost of Terra. They moved through space without making any sound or light. The Zephyrian ships never saw them coming. One by one, the cargo ships exploded in brilliant flashes of fire. All targets destroyed, Hayes reported with satisfaction. Good, Elena said. That's 3 more supply convoys that won't reach their fleet. Navigation. Set course for the next target. While the Ghost of Terra hunted in space, something much bigger was happening across the galaxy. In 47 different star systems, species that had been slaves to the Zephyrians for centuries were finally fighting back. On the world of Qatar Prime, the cat-like Qatarians received a coded message from Earth. Within an hour, they attacked the Zephyrian garrison in their capital city. The weapons Earth had secretly provided were simple but effective. Zephyrian soldiers fell to human-designed rifles and explosives. On the mining world of Vega 7, the rock-eating vegans collapsed every tunnel that led to the Zephyrian control center. The aliens who had forced them to dig for precious metals were now trapped underground with no way to call for help. In the Tau Ceti system, the aquatic Taurans poisoned the water supply of the Zephyrian orbital station. The aliens who had enslaved them for 200 years died within hours. 47 rebellions, all coordinated by Earth's intelligence network. All happening at exactly the same time. Grand Admiral Kethamor stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching reports flood in from across the Zephyrian Empire. His red eyes blazed with anger as system after system reported uprisings. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "These species have been beaten into submission for centuries. They don't have the courage to rebel." His communications officer, a younger Zephyrian with nervous energy, checked his screens again. "Sir, we're receiving distress calls from every sector. The rebellions appear to be coordinated." "Coordinated by whom?" Kethamor asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Unknown, sir. But the weapons being used against our forces. They're not from any known alien technology." Kethamor's fists clenched. The humans. Somehow the weak little species from Earth had organized a galaxy-wide rebellion. While the Zephyrian fleet was moving toward Earth, their entire empire was falling apart behind them. "Sir," called the tactical officer, "we're receiving urgent requests for military support from 37 different worlds. They're asking us to send ships immediately." Kethamor stared at the tactical display. His 500 ships were still 2 days away from Earth. If he continued toward the human homeworld, dozens of Zephyrian colonies would fall to the rebels. But if he turned back to deal with the rebellions, the humans would have time to prepare stronger defenses. "Admiral," the communications officer called out urgently, "we're getting a priority message from High Commander Thekvar." Thekvar's angry face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, alarms were blaring and Zephyrian soldiers were running back and forth. "Kethamor," Thekvar shouted, "the humans have somehow armed every rebel group in our territory. I need you to split your fleet immediately. Send ships to deal with these uprisings." "But sir," Kethamor protested, "if I divide my forces, the attack on Earth will be weakened." "Earth can wait," Thekvar snapped. "If we lose control of our empire, it won't matter if we destroy one human world. We need to put down these rebellions before they spread." Kethamor knew Thekvar was right, but it felt like defeat. The humans had somehow forced the mighty Zephyrian Empire to fight on dozens of fronts at once. "I'll send 200 ships to deal with the rebellions," Kethamor said finally, "but I'm keeping 300 for the attack on Earth." "Do whatever you think is best," Thekvar replied. "Just make sure those human vermin pay for this." The transmission ended and Kethamor began dividing his fleet. 200 of his best ships turned away from Earth to fight rebels across the galaxy. That left him with 300 ships to attack the human homeworld, still more than enough to destroy Earth's small fleet. Or so he thought. Back on Earth, Dr. Webb watched the tactical reports with growing excitement. His plan was working perfectly. The Zephyrian fleet had been cut from 500 ships to 300. Even better, the rebellions were spreading to worlds that hadn't been part of the original plan. "The Zephyrians are completely off balance," he reported to President Liu. "They're fighting fires all across their empire. By the time they reach Earth, they'll be exhausted and confused." "What about our own preparations?" Liu asked. Webb smiled. "Phase 2 is about to begin. Commander Harrison is in position at Proxima Station." Proxima Station was a mining facility in the outer part of Earth's solar system. To the Zephyrians, it looked like an easy target or war, a civilian station with no military value. They were wrong. Commander Jack Harrison stood in the control room of Proxima Station, watching his sensors as Zephyrian scouts approached. The station looked exactly like what it was supposed to be, a simple mining operation with no defenses. "Contact in 5 minutes," reported his sensor operator. "All teams, prepare for action," Harrison said calmly into his communicator. Proxima Station did mine asteroids, but it also had a secret. The same equipment used to break apart space rocks could be turned into incredibly powerful weapons. Harrison's engineers had spent months modifying the mining lasers and ore processors. The first Zephyrian scout ship approached the station slowly. Its crew probably thought they were about to capture a helpless mining facility. Now, Harrison ordered. The asteroid processing laser fired at full power. The beam was designed to cut through solid rock, so it went through the Zephyrian ship's shields like they weren't even there. The enemy scout exploded instantly. The second scout ship tried to escape, but the mining tractor beams caught it. These beams were meant to move asteroids weighing millions of tons. The Zephyrian ship was crushed like an egg. 2 targets down, Harrison reported. No damage to the station. The victory at Proxima Station sent a message to the approaching Zephyrian fleet. Earth was not defenseless. Every human installation, no matter how small or civilian it looked, might be a trap. Captain Rodriguez and the Ghost of Terra continued their hunt through the outer solar system. They had destroyed 6 supply convoys and damaged 2 Zephyrian communication stations. The enemy fleet was starting to run low on fuel and spare parts. "Captain," Lieutenant Park called out, "I'm detecting a large Zephyrian formation moving toward Mars." Elena studied the tactical display. 12 enemy warships were approaching the red planet. Mars had 3 million human colonists and very few defenses. "Set course for Mars," Elena ordered. "Maximum stealth." "Captain," Commander Hayes said nervously, "that's 12 ships against 1. Even with our advantages, those aren't good odds," Elena thought. About the miners who had been killed at Kepler 442, she thought about Tekvar's cruel smile and his threats to extinct humanity. "We're not going to fight 12 ships," she said with a cold smile. "We're going to make them fight each other." The Ghost of Terra moved silently toward Mars. The Zephyrian ships were arranged in a tight formation, confident that no human vessel would dare attack them. They were wrong. About that too, Elena waited until the enemy ships were passing through a dense asteroid field near Mars. Then, she fired a single torpedo arrow, not at a Zephyrian ship, but at a large asteroid between 2 enemy vessels. The asteroid exploded in a shower of rock and metal. The debris smashed into both Zephyrian ships, damaging their hulls and confusing their sensors. In the chaos, the enemy ships started shooting at each other, thinking they were under attack from multiple directions. By the time the Zephyrians realized what had happened, 3 of their ships were destroyed, and 4 more were badly damaged. The Ghost of Terra had already vanished back into the asteroid field. "Target destroyed," Elena reported to Earth Command. "The enemy is learning that space around Earth is not safe for them." Across the galaxy, the Zephyrian Empire continued to burn. High Commander Tekvar stood in his command center, watching his empire burn. Red warning lights flashed across dozens of screens as reports came in from every corner of Zephyrian space. Rebellions on 47 worlds. Supply lines cut. Garrison forces overwhelmed. 3,000 years of conquest falling apart in a matter of days. "Sir?" his aide called nervously. "Grand Admiral Kethmore is requesting permission to use planetary bombardment weapons against the rebels." Tekvar's red eyes blazed with fury. "Denied. We need those worlds intact. They're worth nothing to us as dead rocks." "But sir, our ground forces are taking heavy casualties. The rebels are using weapons we've never seen before." "Human weapons," Tekvar growled. "Everything leads back to those vermin from Earth." He walked to the large viewing window that looked out over the capital city of Zephyr Prime. Below him, millions of Zephyrians went about their daily lives, unaware that their empire was collapsing. Tekvar had spent his entire life building and maintaining Zephyrian power. He would not let it end because of one small, weak species. "Get me a secure channel to Admiral Kethmore," he ordered. Kethmore's face appeared on the communication screen. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship looked chaotic. Officers were running back and forth and alarm sounds filled the air. "Tekvar," Kethmore said urgently, "the situation is getting worse. We've lost contact with 15 colonies, and the rebels are using tactics we don't understand. They hit our weak points and disappear before we can respond." "What's the status of your attack on Earth?" Tekvar asked. "We're still 2 days out, but I've had to send more ships to deal with the rebellions. I'm down to 250 vessels for the main assault." Tekvar's fists clenched. 250 ships should still be more than enough to destroy Earth's tiny fleet, but he was tired of underestimating the humans. "I'm authorizing the use of special weapons," he said finally. Kethmore's eyes widened. "Sir, are you sure? Those weapons haven't been used since the Altarian War." "The Altarians only had 12 colonies," Tekvar replied coldly. "The humans have 17. I want every single human world turned into a dead rock. No survivors, no prisoners, no mercy. What about the galactic treaties against targeting civilian populations? Tekvar laughed bitterly. The humans started this by arming rebels across our empire. They violated every treaty first. Now we finish it. The transmission ended and Tekvar walked back to his command chair. Special weapons Aru planet killers that could destroy entire worlds in minutes. The Zephyrians had built them to deal with species that refused to surrender. They had only been used 3 times in Zephyrian history, but they had never failed. 2 days later, the first human colony died. New Kyoto was a peaceful world in the Centauri system. 2 million humans lived there, mostly farmers and researchers. They had no military bases, no weapons factories, no strategic value at all. The planet's only defenses were a few orbital stations with light shields. The Zephyrian planet killer arrived without warning. It was a massive ship, larger than a city, covered in weapons that humanity had never seen before. The captain of the ship sent one message to New Kyoto before attacking. By order of High Commander Tekvar, this world has been judged guilty of supporting rebellion against the Zephyrian hegemony. The sentence is complete sterilization. The planet killer fired once. A beam of pure energy hit New Kyoto's surface and began to spread. Oceans boiled away. Mountains melted. Cities turned to ash in seconds. Within 10 minutes, every living thing on the planet was dead. The news reached Earth 6 hours later. President Liu sat in her office, staring at the intelligence report. 2 million humans dead in minutes. Men, women, children all killed, because Earth had dared to fight back against Zephyrian demands. Dr. Webb entered the office without knocking. His face was pale, and his hands were shaking. "Madam President," he said quietly, "we need to activate Protocol Omega." Liu looked up at him. "Marcus, what is Protocol Omega?" Webb sat down heavily in the chair across from her desk. "It's something we hoped we would never have to use, Dr. Sarah Kim's special project." "The biochemist? I thought she was working on medical research." "She was," Webb replied. "Medical research that can be used as a weapon. We've been studying Zephyrian biology for 15 years. Their DNA is completely different from ours. They have 3 genetic strands, instead of 2. Dr. Kim has created a virus that targets that specific genetic structure." Liu felt a chill run down her spine. "You mean a biological weapon?" "I mean a weapon that will kill every Zephyrian in the galaxy within weeks of exposure. Every single one. Their entire species extinct." Liu stood up and walked to her window. Outside, she could see people in the streets of Geneva. Some were protesting the war, others were supporting it. All of them were alive because they hadn't been born on New Kyoto. "How does it work?" she asked without turning around. "It's delivered through their breathing systems," Webb explained. "It spreads like a common cold, but once it reaches their organs, it causes complete genetic breakdown. There's no cure, no treatment, no way to stop it. How long would it take? To kill their entire species? Maybe 6 weeks. We estimate it would spread to every Zephyrian world within a month." Liu turned back to face Webb. "Marcus, what you're describing is genocide, the complete extinction of an entire species." "Yes," Webb said simply, "just like they did to the Altarians. Just like they did to 42 other species. Just like they're planning to do to us." Liu walked back to her desk and picked up the report about New Kyoto. 2 million names that would never be spoken again. 2 million people who had died for the crime of being human. "What does Dr. Kim say about this weapon?" Liu asked. "She calls it justice," Webb replied. "Her daughter lived on New Kyoto." The room was silent for a long moment. Outside, Liu could hear the sounds of a city going about its normal day. But she knew that in 2 days, Zephyrian ships would arrive to destroy that city and everyone in it. "If we use this weapon," Liu said slowly, "there's no going back. We would be responsible for killing an entire species." "And if we don't use it," Webb replied, "our entire species will be killed instead. The Zephyrians have already shown us what they do to worlds that resist them." Liu's communication device buzzed. It was Admiral Chen calling from Fleet Headquarters. "Madam President," Chen said when Liu answered, "we just received word that the Zephyrians destroyed the colony on Tau Ceti 4, another 1 million dead. They're moving systematically through our outer colonies. How long until they reach Earth?" Liu asked. 36 hours, maybe less. Our fleet is ready to fight, but..." Chen's voice trailed off. "But we can't win a conventional battle," Liu finished. "No, Madam President, we can't." Liu ended the call and looked back at Webb. How quickly can Dr. Kim's weapon be deployed? The delivery system is already prepared, Webb said. Microscopic capsules that our ships can release during combat. Once the Zephyrians breathe it in, the spread becomes automatic. And you're absolutely certain it will only affect Zephyrians? Completely certain. Human DNA is too different. The virus can't even recognize our genetic structure. Liu sat down at her desk and opened her computer. The authorization codes for humanity's most dangerous weapons were stored in an encrypted file that only she could access. Marcus, she said as she typed, I want you to understand something. If we do this, history will judge us as either the saviors of humanity or the worst monsters who ever lived. I understand, Madam President. And you still think we should proceed? Webb thought about New Kyoto. He thought about the memorial wall with 43 extinct species. He thought about the Zephyrian planet killer ships moving toward Earth. The Zephyrians made their choice when they decided that genocide was an acceptable tool of conquest, he said firmly. They've used it 43 times before. Now they want to use it on us. I think it's time they learned what their victims felt like. Liu finished typing the authorization codes. Dr. Kim's weapon is now active. Deploy it as soon as our ships engage the enemy. Yes, Madam President. Webb stood up to leave, then turned back. There's one more thing. Grand Admiral Kethmore is leading the attack personally. His flagship will be the first ship to enter our solar system. Why is that important? Because once he's exposed to the virus, he'll carry it back to every Zephyrian world he visits. Their entire command structure will be infected within days. Liu nodded grimly. Make sure Dr. Kim knows. I want her to see this through to the end. As Webb left the office, Liu remained at her desk, staring at the authorization codes on her screen. In 36 hours, humanity would either be free or extinct. But one thing was certain. The Zephyrian Empire would learn that there were consequences for challenging Earth. They had wanted to add humanity to their memorial wall of dead species. Instead, they were about to become extinct themselves. The Hercules Nebula stretched across space like a giant cloud of colored gas and cosmic dust. Inside the nebula, sensors barely worked and communication was difficult. It was the perfect place for the final battle between humanity and the Zephyrian Empire. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Earth flagship Defiance, watching her fleet take position among the swirling gases. 200 human ships moved silently through the nebula, their crews ready for the fight of their lives. Each ship carried a special cargo that would decide the fate of 2 species. Admiral, called Commander Torres from the sensor station, Zephyrian fleet approaching from Sector 7. I count 250 ships, Chen nodded grimly. The Zephyrians still outnumbered them, and their ships were still larger and more powerful. But today, size and strength wouldn't matter. Today, humanity was fighting with weapons the enemy had never imagined. Dr. Kim, Chen said into her communicator, are your delivery systems ready? All ships are equipped and ready to deploy, came the reply from the scientist who had created humanity's most terrible weapon. Once combat begins, the virus will be released automatically. Chen looked out at the beautiful colors of the nebula. In a few minutes, this peaceful place would become a battlefield. And when the battle ended, one entire species would be doomed to extinction. All ships, she broadcast to her fleet, remember what happened to New Kyoto. Remember the 2 million civilians who died just because they were human. Today, we make sure that never happens again. Grand Admiral Kethmore felt confident as his fleet entered the nebula. Yes, the humans had caused problems throughout the Empire, but now he would finish them once and for all. His ships were bigger, his weapons were stronger, and his crews had 3,000 years of military experience. Sensors are detecting human ships throughout the nebula, reported his tactical officer. They're trying to use the gas clouds to hide from us. Kethmore smiled coldly. It won't help them. Begin wide-area bombardment. Flush them out of hiding. The Zephyrian fleet opened fire with their massive energy weapons. Red beams lanced through the colorful gas, lighting up the nebula like deadly fireworks. Where the beams hit human ships, explosions bloomed in the cosmic dust. First contact, Chen announced as Zephyrian weapons found their targets. All ships begin evasive maneuvers. Use the nebula to your advantage. The human fleet scattered through the gas clouds, moving fast and staying hidden. Their ships were smaller and more maneuverable than the enemy vessels. They struck quickly from unexpected angles, then disappeared back into the swirling gases. Captain Rodriguez and the Ghost of Terra moved like a phantom through the nebula. Her ship's advanced stealth systems made it almost invisible among the cosmic dust. She waited until a massive Zephyrian battleship passed nearby, then fired every torpedo she had. The enemy ship's shields flared and died under the assault. Secondary explosions rippled along its hull as ammunition storage areas were hit. The battleship slowly rolled over and exploded in a ball of fire that lit up half the nebula. "That's for the miners at Kepler 442, Rodriguez whispered. But the real battle was happening on a level invisible to the naked eye. As the two fleets fought among the gas clouds, microscopic capsules were breaking open inside every Zephyrian ship. Dr. Kim's virus spread through alien breathing systems, carried by the very air that kept the Zephyrians alive. On the bridge of Kethmore's flagship, a junior officer suddenly collapsed at his station, then another. Within minutes, half the bridge crew was on the floor, their bodies convulsing as their genetic structure broke down at the cellular level. "What's happening?" Kethmore demanded, but he was already feeling the effects himself. His red eyes were losing their brightness and his hands were starting to shake. The virus worked exactly as Dr. Kim had designed it. It spread through the Zephyrian respiratory system like a common cold. But once it reached their organs, it began rewriting their DNA. The three-strand genetic structure that made Zephyrians unique became their downfall. "Medical emergency on all decks," came reports from throughout the ship. "Crew members are collapsing everywhere." Kethmore staggered to his command chair, his legs barely supporting his weight. Around him, his bridge officers were dying one by one. The virus was spreading through his ship's life support system, infecting every Zephyrian aboard. "Admiral Chen," came a transmission from the human fleet. "This is Dr. Sarah Kim. The weapon has been deployed successfully. All Zephyrian ships are now infected." Chen watched through her view screen as enemy ships began to drift helplessly through the nebula. Their crews were dying and their weapons fell silent one by one. Ships that had been firing just moments before now floated like metal coffins among the gas clouds. "All human ships," Chen broadcast, "cease fire and withdraw to safe distance. Let the virus finish its work." The human fleet pulled back and watched as the mighty Zephyrian armada died. Ship after ship went dark as their crews succumbed to the biological weapon. The aliens who had conquered 43 species were now facing their own extinction. On his dying flagship, Kethmore managed to activate one final communication system. His message reached not only the human fleet but also Zephyrian command posts throughout the galaxy. "What manner of devils are you?" he gasped, blood flowing from his mouth as his organs failed. Admiral Chen's response was broadcast across all frequencies, ensuring that every surviving Zephyrian in the galaxy would hear her words. "We are what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness." Kethmore tried to reply, but his voice failed him. He collapsed in his command chair as the virus completed its work. Around him, his bridge fell silent except for the sound of failing life support systems. The Grand Admiral of the Zephyrian Empire died alone on his bridge, surrounded by the bodies of his crew. His flagship drifted powerless through the colorful gases of the Hercules Nebula, a monument to the price of challenging humanity. But the virus wasn't finished. As planned, several Zephyrian ships had managed to send distress signals before their crews died. Rescue ships from across the Empire rushed to help their comrades, not knowing they were flying into a trap. When the rescue ships docked with the infected vessels, the virus spread to their crews as well. Then those ships returned to Zephyrian worlds carrying death with them. Within days, the virus had reached every major Zephyrian colony. High Commander Thekvar was in his office on Zephyr Prime when the first reports arrived. Colony after colony falling silent, entire fleets going dark, military bases with no response to communication attempts. "Sir," his aide said nervously, "we're receiving reports of a plague spreading through our territory, some kind of respiratory infection that only affects our species." Thekvar felt a chill of fear. "Where did it start?" "The Hercules Nebula, sir. Ships returning from the battle with Earth appear to be the source." Thekvar realized the truth with growing horror. The humans hadn't just defeated his fleet arm. They had created a weapon designed specifically to destroy Zephyrians. Every ship, every colony, every member of his species was now doomed. "How long do our medical experts think we have?" he asked quietly. "The infection appears to be 100% fatal, sir. Our doctors estimate the entire population of Zephyr Prime will be dead within 2 weeks. Thekvar walked to his window and looked out over his capital city. Millions of Zephyrians going about their daily lives not knowing they were already dead. The mighty empire he had spent his life building was about to become extinct. His communication system chimed with an incoming message from Earth. President Lu's face appeared on his screen, calm and composed. "High Commander Thekavar," she said formally, "I am calling to inform you that humanity accepts your surrender." "Surrender?" Thekavar laughed bitterly. "My entire species is dying. What use is surrender now?" "You're right," Lu replied. "It is too late for surrender. You had your chance to accept our peaceful withdrawal from the disputed systems. Instead, you chose genocide as your preferred method of diplomacy. You've doomed an entire species," Thekavar accused. "No," Lu said coldly. "You doomed your species when you decided that extinction was an acceptable tool of conquest. You used it 43 times before. We've simply ensured you can never use it again." The transmission ended, leaving Thekavar alone with his thoughts. Outside his window, the first Zephyrians were beginning to collapse in the streets as the virus reached the capital city. 6 months later, Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood once again in the Galactic Council chamber. But this time everything was different. The massive Zephyrian section sat empty and silent. No red-eyed aliens with sharp teeth demanding submission from weaker species. Elena walked to the same podium where Thekavar had once humiliated her. Behind her, workers were installing a new memorial wall. This one was different from the old wall that had listed extinct species conquered by the Zephyrians. This memorial had only one nameplate: the Zephyrian Hegemony 3247 BCE 2847 CE. They chose extinction. Elena addressed the gathered aliens, many of whom had once been slaves to the Zephyrian Empire. Her voice was calm and measured, but every species in the chamber understood the warning in her words. "The human species wishes to establish peaceful relationships with all members of this council," she said. "We have no desire for conquest or domination.